Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the ETH Penang August event. So I'm TC, the MC for today. So today, the event is regarding the strategies for Web3 companies to build and sustain partnership, as well as some insights regarding Bitcoin Ordinals. So first up, we have Luca, which is the creator, lead, and portfolio associate at Animoca brands. So some background regarding Luca. Luca is formerly head of partnership for ZenAcademy by Zeneca. So Animoca brands is a Fortune Crypto 40 company that won multiple awards and is a Web3 leader that leverages blockchain to deliver property rights to consumers globally to establish open metaverse. So Luca today will be sharing his insights on the process of approaching and negotiating with potential partners and other insights throughout his career process. Without further ado, let's welcome Luca to the stage.
Can I just click to move on to the next slide? Let me just try it out. Okay, perfect. Yes, everyone okay. All right, test. Maybe it's a lot. Hey everyone, nice to meet you. As already introduced, thank you so much. My name is Luca, and I am a creator lead and portfolio associate at Animoca Brands. So I guess a couple of people here are aware of Animoca Brands. It is quite a big VC and is doing a lot in crypto. They invest in a lot of gaming companies, and I think at the moment we are at 540 companies that we invested in. And yeah, Animoca is one of the biggest holders of Yuga, for example. So I think the name is, some people know the name. Before that, I was focused on ZenAcademy, which is a Web3 education startup. So doing very similar things that we do right now here, where you basically try to get a lot of Web2 people into Web3, educate them how Web3 works, how blockchain works, and try to get them a sense of why is Web3 important and why does it matter and what are the opportunities in Web3. So ZenAcademy is a very interesting step as well, because it was very focused on onboarding people. And now at Animoca is very focused on onboarding companies. So it's a much bigger scale. And in my career at Animoca and also ZenAcademy, when it comes to partnerships, because this is the topic of today, how to maintain and create sustainable partnerships in Web3. I've worked with more than 30 partnerships, for example, with very big companies such as Base, Aptos, Etherscan, for example, but also a lot of communities. So some of communities that you might know, Yuga, Azuki, like a lot of the big NFT communities, so to speak. And also we work with governmental agencies. So for example, with ZenAcademy, we were working on a governmental agency in Canada, and we were trying to educate regulators and policymakers about Web3 and trying to get them more interested in how to integrate Web3 into the legislature in Canada. So a lot of different venues for partnerships and also individual creators, because now at Animoca, what I'm very focused on is creator lead. And essentially that means creator could be anyone who's a builder or an influencer, if you want to call it like this a lot. So those are all creators in the Web3 space, and they have a lot of stake in Web3, because as every one of you knows, how do you mostly hear about a new project? How do you hear about a new company? You mostly do through marketing. You hear from an influencer, you hear through a campaign. So all of these creators is something that I'm very focused on. And also through my career, I've been working with a lot of individual creators such as Zeneca, for example, which is a very big educator, which some people might know, or Dingaling is a very big NFT influencer that many might know. So yeah, a lot of different venues for partnerships in Web3. And now we're going to get started. We also have a Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions, maybe we can just do that at the end. So first of all, it's really important to understand what a partnership in Web3 actually means, because partnership is a very broad term. So to me, a partnership really is a strategic alliance between two or more parties that are trying to achieve a common goal. And a big aspect of Web2, obviously, is partnerships, collaborations with other companies. But in Web3, partnerships are even more important, in my opinion. Because in Web3, the whole idea of Web3 is decentralization. It is working together in a decentralized way. It is having a stake of a common sense and trying to make the pie bigger than trying to take your stake away. So I think collaborations are even more important in Web3 than Web2. And why partnerships are so important is you're really trying to expand your own reach. So when every project, every company has its own reach, but with collaborations and partnerships, it's a great way to actually look beyond that and extend your reach to another pool of users, of companies, and just create that brand awareness. And partnerships are one of the best ways to actually do that. It also accelerates innovation and growth. In Web3, you have a lot of amazing developers, you have a lot of amazing marketers, a lot of amazing startup founders. And if you bring those people together, something magical can really happen, and you can really create a synergy that hasn't been done before. So Web3 is all about collaboration, in my opinion. And if you work together with companies and other projects, it can really accelerate your own product. There's so many stories in my career and also in my professional career that I know that there's a very good founder, for example. He had an idea about a project, but he never really pursued it. Then he met another person at a conference. He had a really good idea as well. Then they ended up working together, and now they have a company with 50 people. So in Web3, collaboration really is extremely important, and it can really accelerate anything. And then one other thing is really, it enhances credibility. And what I mean by that is social proof. So social proof really is, let's say, for example, today, we're here at ETH Penang, at Digital Penang, and just having that association with Digital Penang gives the whole event much more credibility than if we would just do it in like a coffee place, right, for example. Or if an NFT project, like let's say Yuga, is collaborating with a very big project, such as, let's say, just for an example, Base. That's a big proof, like a big social proof, and gives the project much more credibility. So trying to find good partners and working with good partners not only helps you accelerate growth and expand the reach, but also gives you more credibility. And that can be important for more users. Funding is a very big aspect, especially because I'm coming from a VC finance standpoint. VCs will always be looking at, okay, you're a founder, like who are you working with? Like who are your team members? What is your credibility like? Who are the companies that you work with? And what are the partnerships that you've done so far? So partnerships are extremely important, not just Web2, but even more important in Web3. Then a really important thing is also the types of partnerships, because again, we define now what a partnership is, but there's so many different types of partnerships that are equally important. The first one is the strategic alliance. So those alliances are very long-term bets, very long-term decisions that you as a founder make in the beginning that have a big impact on your career and also on your company. And those are decisions that you take once, and they take a long time. So they could take years, right? Those very big long-term strategic partnerships. For example, Ethereum and Consensus. I guess everyone is aware, I believe, of Ethereum and Consensus. So if Ethereum wouldn't have had partnered with Consensus in the beginning and Joe Lubin, they wouldn't be where they are today, in my opinion, because of the distribution, because of the awareness, the infrastructure that Consensus gave Ethereum. So a very strategic alliance from day one. And also another good example is, for example, Polygon and Disney. So I guess Polygon, everyone is aware, Disney, of course. Disney had an accelerator program where they wanted to work with some of the biggest leaders in like new innovation and tech, and they were working with Polygon to design new ways of storytelling for their own products. So those are very strategic alliances that are very important. And for every founder, he really has to make those decisions if he's big enough to create these very long-term strategic partners. Then you have technical collaborations. What I mean by that is, where do you build? Like, what's your ecosystem? Do you want to go on Base? Do you want to go on Solana? You really have to be informed about who's the community, because I don't know if you guys are all like, this is an Ethereum event, but there are so many different communities, and all of these communities have a different vibe. For example, we've been to a Solana event. People on Solana are very different than people on Ethereum. They're much more degen, they're much more focused on money, they're not that philosophical, they're not that foundational, so it's a very different crowd. So you really have to know the crowd and the ecosystem that you're building. So a technical partner on Solana could be very different than a technical partner on Base, for example. So technical collaborations not only mean the chain, but also infrastructure partners. Tech stack, the data sets, all of that. Those are very strategic decisions as well when it comes to partnerships. And then In my opinion, another one, which is maybe not even equally, but more important, is the marketing and the distribution partnerships. Because as we know, crypto is very much about awareness, very much about a lot of talking, and a lot of projects, especially in a bull run, I would say honestly, 30% of a project's success is the product and 70% is marketing in a bull run, okay? That changes if there's no bull run, but in a bull run, when the tension is there, you really need to figure out like your distribution method and your marketing. If you don't have that in place, you can have the best product in the world. If you don't have a good way to get that message across to people, it will not be a successful product in most cases. So having the right marketing and distribution partnerships is essential. And what I mean by that is, and what we see more in, like pretty much every day in the space, every single, maybe not every single, but I assure you 90% of the projects that you've seen that someone else has posted about are being paid. So all of these KOLs or influencers, even if you don't know it, maybe it's sometimes an ambassador or a KOL or an influencer, 90% of all of them are paid, and it's very difficult to distinguish which one is actually real and which one is not. So always be aware of that when you see some influencer shilling a project on the timeline, right? So KOLs, and why so many people are working with KOLs, with these key opinion leaders, these influencers, is because they are the ones that are so close to the community. If all of you are fans of, let's say, Dingaling, because he's a very big name in the space, in the NFT space, with around, I think, 200,000 followers, one of the biggest whales. If he says something about a project, everyone will believe him. If a project says something, it's always a brand, right? Like if a brand says, I'm a good brand, people are not that sure if that's actually true, because people generally don't trust brands as much as they trust other people. I would talk to a friend, would tell him, hey, this is a good project, or this is a good product. So it's word to mouth. And if you have these influencers and KOLs talk about your project, that's pretty much one of the best ways to make marketing. But at the same time, it can be very difficult, it can be very diluted and very expensive as well. You would not believe what some of these very top tier KOLs and influencers charge, just as an idea, to give you some perspective. There's some influencers that have maybe around 200,000 followers, they are quite big, they have a big impact in the market, but they would charge for $5,000 for one tweet. So if you have a month-long marketing campaign, you need to be ready to spend 20, 30, 40K. And projects are doing that. Projects are really doing that, especially projects that have a lot of funding. They can take 100K for 2 influencers. That's not a big deal for them. So it's very, very difficult to find good influencers or KOLs that are not that expensive. So the best way to approach this as a founder, if you don't have a lot of money, find local ambassadors in your network. Find what, we've just been discussing this as well, Sam, right? So if you have people in your community that are very eager and very active, those are the people you should help promote. Those are the people you should give more ownership. So leverage the people in your own community that are eager and that want to learn. Make them your own influencers, so to speak, if they want, obviously, to work with them together on those marketing and distribution channels. And then one more partnership type that I want to go into is community and ecosystem partnerships. So what I mean by that is mostly community partnerships would be, let's say, one project partners with other project specifically for tapping into their community, because most of the projects or most of the companies in Web3, they all have their own community. If it's developers, if it's traders, they all have their own community. And some examples of a great partnership or a memorable partnership of Web3 would, for example, be, I guess many of you, maybe how many know what this partnership? So essentially, Sandbox is a name for all of you, right? So Sandbox is a metaverse project that is pretty much the biggest metaverse project in the world. And they have partnered with McDonald's to actually integrate McNugget Land into Sandbox, which was a very cool partnership because a lot of Web2 brands like Starbucks, McDonald's, right? They have tried to branch into Web3, especially during the NFT hype during 2021, 2022. And that's a very successful collaboration. So McDonald's worked with the Sandbox to create kind of like this Minecraft world of chicken nuggets. And it had great results and great reputation for McDonald's. And everyone thought, oh, McDonald's is doing something really innovative. It's amazing what they're doing. So that is a very focused community and ecosystem partnership, as an example. How many of you guys know what this is, this partnership? Yeah, Sam? Okay, so This partnership right here, obviously, is a Formula One car, Red Bull racing team. And this NFT that you can see right here, this character, is from Azuki. And Azuki is also one of probably the second biggest or third most well-known NFT project in the world. And having an Azuki being featured on a Formula One racing car might seem like a small thing, but just think about how many people, like parents, like other normal, like Web2 people, so to speak, see this character for the first time. They're all wondering, what's this? Maybe they don't notice it in the beginning, but everyone will see it. Millions of people will see it and will actually think about, okay, what's this? And then they get into more research and figure out, okay, it's a Azuki, cool NFT project whatsoever. So that is a very cool project and a very good, successful partnership as well, in my opinion. And obviously, if we're thinking about more technical collaboration focused, such as, for example, Chainlink, which I believe many of you are aware of Chainlink, they had a very big partnership with Google Cloud to use their data sets. So all of these would be examples of great partnerships in different types of partnerships in Web3. And then, when you actually have identified a potential partner, how do you actually approach the partner? What are some strategies there? So first of all, when you identify a partner, the main important things are really, who is your partner? Like what's your goal as a company? And then, does the partner have the same values? Like if you're developing an NFT project on Base, does it make that much sense to go out and reach out to Solana community? Probably not. Probably you want to have a partner that is also focused building on Base that has the same values. So when you work together with different partners, really identify those values first and what should those things be that I need to align on with the partners that I want to work with. And try to find complementary strengths. So again, in the example of, let's say, an NFT project on Base, you find a tech partner that is on Base that you can have those strengths and you can complement each other. It doesn't make sense if you're both two NFT companies, you work together. That's good, but it's better if both of you do different things, right? So you can really complement your strengths. And then once you really identified the potential partners, how do you approach them? And I think one of the best practices for initially outreaching them and trying to get to them, which is quite common sense and very straightforward, you should have a warm lead. You should have some contact either directly at that company or that partner or through a second instance. If you're trying to do cold outreach, it can be very, very frustrating and be very difficult. So if you don't know anyone in that company, try to talk around. You would be amazed how easy it is to actually find people. So literally, if I would be here in Malaysia, I don't know anyone at Etherscan, but I would just ask around. And I'm sure 100% I would find people who know someone at Etherscan who could make an intro. So trying to leverage these warm contacts is the best way to actually find partners and get to speak to them. Because if you reach out on a cold way, it can be very frustrating, it can be very difficult as founder. So try to find someone in your network that has access to those people. And if you don't, try to find them. If you don't have anyone and you want to do cold outreach, make sure that that outreach is very personalized. There's nothing worse as a company, also as Animoca. We have so many people that reach out to us if we want to invest in them. There's nothing worse if you have the feeling that that approach or that initial outreach is not even customized. It's like a copy-paste message that they send out to everyone. Hey, can you invest in us? That's the worst thing. You really need to make it a personalized approach and make it clearly what the value proposition is. If you don't have a value proposition when you pitch your ideas, then there is no sense for a company to listen to you. You should be able to really have this idea of the elevator pitch. If you cannot ask someone or tell someone in 2 minutes what do you want from them and what you can give them as well, it's not a good approach. And always think about not just what you can get from them, but think about what you can do for them. So it's really all about giving as well instead of just taking. If we have projects reach out to us, if we can invest in them, we always ask them, okay, but what can you do for me? Like what brand awareness can I grow? What companies can I attract? Or maybe what markets can I tap into? So that's the first question you should think about. How can I solve your problem so you can help me instead of the other way around? And then maybe just quickly on some negotiation tactics. Again, here it's very important to have shared goals, that you're aligned on that. But I think one of the most important things is that you have aligned incentives. And what I mean by that is, if we have companies that ask us for investment, it makes much more sense for us, instead of giving them cash, for example, to invest in them because then if they do well, we also do well. So we have shared incentives and aligned incentives. So if you think about budget for investing or marketing, think about maybe instead of giving your tech partner, instead of paying them in cash, think about maybe giving them part of the equity of your company. So instead of having alignment for a month because you pay them and then they never talk to you again, as an example, if you give them equity, they're aligned long term. And if you succeed, they succeed. This can be also difficult to achieve, but if your company is doing something very cool and profound, then it should be relatively simple to convince partners to actually join forces and get those aligned incentives. So that is a bit on the approach and how to negotiate with partners. Then quickly on building relationships with external stakeholders. So this is when you identify the partner, you want to work with a specific partner. How do you actually build that relationship? Because then the whole project just starts, right? You just identified someone you want to work with, and now you are working together. It's very important, and I can't stress this enough, you have to set clear expectations from day one. Web3, especially this space, is all about expectations. And everyone in Web3, every builder will know that. Every user in Web3 has the highest expectations. Everyone thinks, okay, I can come into the space, I make a lot of money, and then I leave. Or I'm going to be rich in a week, or I'm going to build a product in a month, and everyone, I don't know, like someone else comes and buys the product. And those expectations can really destroy relationships. So set very clear expectations from day one, making sure that when you're talking to partners, whatever it may be, tech partner, marketing partner, we're going to work with this together for a year. We see how it goes. We do like monthly check-ins, for example. We have talks, we have honest updates, how it's going. But having the wrong expectations in the beginning and never setting these expectations in the first place at all is a very bad thing to do, and it will be a mistake or an issue later on. So that's very important, and I can't stress this enough. When it comes to communication, because you're building a relationship, you're working with partners, just make sure that there's a lot of communication going on. Better to over-communicate than under-communicate. If you have a tech partner and you don't talk to him, how are they supposed to know what you want? They really need to understand what you want, so you need to communicate that clearly. If you don't, in regular updates, for example, or again, manage expectations, they will not know what they should deliver, and same for marketing, same for every other aspect of your business. So try to have these monthly check-ins or bi-weekly check-ins with them and be honest about the feedback that you have and also what you expect from them. And then, again, when it comes to long-term relationship management for these strategic alliances, there needs to be trust and a shared vision. And building trust, you build trust building trust is not a one-way street. Building trust goes both ways. Both partners have to commit long-term, and a lot of reputable or a lot of good actions leads to trust. Instead of you pay them once and then trust exists. Trust is something that you have to build over a long period of time. And the same goes for every partner that you work in with Web3. And it is really worth it. I can't stress this enough. There's so many bridges that have been burned that I've seen from projects and founders in the space because they haven't really had the same vision and haven't been really trying to maintain that relationship. And then you cannot get back most of the times to trying to recoup that relationship. So it's really important to just build that trust steadily and slowly, but make it worthwhile. Okay, then 2 case studies that I just want to quickly highlight on successful Web3 partnerships. Probably some of you are familiar with, let's say, the left picture right there. So, someone familiar with that? Yeah, right, okay. So what happened right here, I believe it was in 2021. So Adidas, one of the biggest sports apparel companies in the world, which you all are familiar with, collaborated with Yuga, or the Bored Apes, for an NFT collection, which was called Into the Metaverse. And the reason why this was so important is, first of all, Adidas created physical pieces, physical apparel, like the jacket you can see here, and you could buy an NFT for that jacket, and then you could actually claim the real-life physical piece of clothing for that NFT. So it was one of the first collaborations that had fidgetals incorporated in it. And it's not the very first, but the main reason why this was so big is it's Adidas, right? It's like the world's most renowned brand, or one of the biggest brands in the world. And if they collaborate with a project like Yuga, that sets Yuga or Bored Apes apart from everyone else because they have this social proof again. And NFTs or communities are a great way to tap into culture. Adidas is all about streetwear, young, branded apparel. And if they tap into that community of apes and yoga, that's a very good and very strong relationship and a very good partnership. So that is a very big and very successful partnership that you should definitely look up to or just research a bit on that partnership. This one, I guess a lot of people know who Pharrell Williams is. He's one of the biggest musicians in the 21st century. And yeah, he's just a very cultural person and has a very big stake in the music industry, artistic industry. And he has been collaborating with a project called Doodles that some of you might be familiar with, as not just as an influencer or someone who shills the project, but he actually took up a role at the project as a chief brand officer. What that means is that he basically led all the direction of art, music, and the whole artistic repertoire of this project from his persona. And again, why this is so important is because someone very big from the Web2 world has actually put his own reputation on the line to work with a company in Web3, which is an NFT project, which seemed to be a big gamble back in the time. So this is a very great example of it as well. And they have collaborated, made music together. So the artistic direction is a really cool example of how a Web2 personality worked with Web3 project to actually achieve something really cool. So that's another great partnership that you should look up to if you have never researched or you've never seen that partnership before. And obviously there are countless other partnerships that I could mention, but we have a limited amount of time, so I picked those two. And then I just want to quickly wrap it up with some tips and tricks for successful partnerships. So when you have a partnership, one of the first things that I always tell people or tell projects, try to get some quick wins. What I mean by that is, if you work with someone together and you start the relationship, you start that trust, try to get a win as fast as possible. Even if it's a small win, let's say you collaborate, you have a couple of milestones, and you try to hit that first goal together in the first month. If you have these positive experiences with a partner, these quick wins, it can really set up the relationship in the right way, in the right path, for both building a better trust and a better relationship. So whatever these small little wins could be, some low-hanging fruit that you could do, try to do them as fast as possible so you get those positive reinforcement of the relationship. And then also, one thing that I see multiple times being done wrong is effective onboarding. So when you work with partners, most people never really sit down and mention clearly, okay, what are my responsibilities? What are your responsibilities? Who is responsible? Who is the point of contact? Especially if you're a bigger team and you work together with 20 people on one project. You need to have a project manager. If you don't, timelines will get thrown around. No one will know what to do. You need to have a point of contact for every single aspect of your business. So if it's marketing, you have one point of contact, not two, not three, one. You have one point of contact for tech. You have one point of contact for BD. If you don't, things will get very messy and you will lose a lot of time. Time is of the essence when it comes to building a project. So how you can avoid that? Day one, you collaborate with someone, you make a list, you write down the name of every person, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for this, and you're responsible for this. And if they don't show up or they don't do their work, you need to call out that person. But if there's no one that you can give that responsibility to, no one will care, or it will get lost. Things will get lost and will get very, very messy. So those are two things that they're very broad, but I really urge you to think about those things when you do collaborations and partnerships in Web2 or Web3, could be both, right? And then one of the things that I want to highlight as well as a red flag, some common pitfalls to avoid, so to speak. Again, misaligned goals. You have a tech partner, he thinks that you're doing, I don't know, like $100,000 sales a month because you have never mentioned that you're just starting, for example, and he thinks, okay, that's a great partner to work with. And then in the end, the collaboration doesn't end up working and you split apart because the alignment of goals was not there from the beginning. So really try to be transparent from day one. And then, again, lack of transparency, what I just mentioned, or overpromising. All the things that I just mentioned essentially in that one example, don't overpromise, don't really have that lack of transparency. Try to be as transparent as possible from day one and have aligned goals. Really can't stress this enough. And then, as a final wrap up, some keys to a good partnership. So mutual trust, we already spoke about this. You build trust through a long way. It's not a one-time thing. It's a very long relationship, and multiple positive things and tiny little steps help for that trust that you're building. Alignment of goals, and also adaptability. In Web3, metas, narratives change extremely fast. What is hot right now, like let's say ordinals, could be very cold in 2 weeks from now or in a month from now, and then something else like Solana NFTs or meme coins could be very big. So try to stay as lean as possible and try to stay as adaptive as possible and flexible. I know that can be very hard, but try to be very flexible when it comes to how you set up your team, how you think about specific goals. Try to be very flexible when it comes to that, because Web3 is all about speed and all about flexibility and adaptation to current narratives. And now that was the presentation. Thank you very much. And yeah, we have a short Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, please just let me know or let any one of the hosts know as well.
I have a question.
Please.
You showed just curious, like you have like what like experience of that experience for communicating between this the person is doing a good job and how it's doing it.
Totally. So I think it's very important that you have clear communication channels. So let's say you work together with a partner, you have a team, your team is 5 people, your partner has 5 people. Set up a Slack channel, set up a Telegram group, set up a Discord channel. Doesn't matter what it is, but there need to be some clear communication channels that everyone has visibility. There's nothing worse than if you have a team and everyone communicates with someone else, but there's no visibility. So you always lose track of what's happening. You never know what's the actual status of something. So the best thing to do is set up one overall group to communicate clearly with all the stakeholders from the other partnership. That's one thing. And then also do have these check-ins that I mentioned. So have regular updates. If you just text, that's fine. But if you have a call once in a while, have a call every 2 weeks, have an agenda, have a clear guideline of what are the things that we set out in the beginning, and are we keeping track on those? How are we doing at the moment? And try to manage that. So I think that's very important. Clear communication channels, and also do check-ins, like monthly, weekly, doesn't matter. That's depending on your pace, but have that in place. Otherwise, things will get lost. It can be very tricky to communicate with a partner effectively. Does that answer your question?
Very surprising, like how that from partner very surprising the way
Yeah, totally. So maybe a negative example, but we worked together with a tech company, and one dev was there specifically that was actually, he would be the responsible person for a very big project in a very important timeline, but we never really had that list of responsibilities. So we always assumed that he knows he should do what he thinks he should do, but we never really made that clear from the beginning in the communication. So he never really thought that he has to do anything. So time went by, we were 3 weeks in the project, and then suddenly we called him out and we're like, hey, what's the status in this? And he was like, what do you mean? Like, I never really knew that I have to work on this. You're telling me this now? So that was a surprise, which costed us 3 weeks from a perspective of the process of the project, because we never made clear, or we never made it explicitly clear that that person should do something specifically. So again, like I think making those responsibilities very clear is a key of not having any negative surprises. Yes. That's a good question. I think the major concern is, again, like there's so many expectations in Web3, and it's very simple for a project to put like a very nice narrative into ChatGPT and promote that as the next big thing, especially if you have narratives like AI and very hyped narratives. So obviously as well, like users, like general users, VCs, venture capital funds, have the same FOMO effect, right? So if a company is like a company is very big in AI and they promote themselves as the next big thing, if one VC jumps in and invests in that company, a lot of the other VCs will have FOMO as well and will try to look at what this company is doing. So what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to get it as, have clear metrics of success as a company and really show a VC what you've been doing. If you go to a VC and you don't have any product, if you don't have any MVP even, you just have some Figma graphics and an idea, that's not enough. That was maybe enough in 2017 with the ICO phase, but now you really need to have a working product, at least an MVP. You need to have clear goals, clear success metrics, and you need to have a product market fit. You need to show a VC that what you're doing right now with that project actually makes sense from a perspective of there's a problem that you're solving and that it's proven. Because every founder thinks that he's solving the next big problem, but many times it's just in their mind. Many founders are building a project to fulfill a problem that has never even existed. So that's a very big thing that we see multiple times. So you really need to figure out, like, do market research on, is there an actual problem that you're solving? Instead of, I'm going to build this, I'm going to create a problem so I can solve it. So that's a very big piece. So to answer your question, come down on one thing, make sure that you have an MVP, make sure that you have your success metrics, and that you can actually show something, improve something, instead of just talking. Because VCs are very hesitant when it comes to that. So you really need to show that you actually did some work. And also depends on the VC, right? So Animoca is very careful and very due diligent. So the due diligence is very big. And one of the key things as well is users. If you don't have any users at all, it can be very difficult to attract VCs. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, this has always been in my mind. We know the partnership in the Web3 world. We most likely will have an understanding or you sign or a contract. So thinking that be ABC, what we doing, EM is what we will be doing. Right? In Web3 world, do we have usual thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Because in Web3, we have much less due diligence in general, right? And people just do things on a promise over like a phone call or something. So there's definitely MOUs as well. But one of the things that a lot of VCs are doing when they invest into a company, they do SAFs. And SAFs are simple agreements for future tokens. So you essentially say, those are the deliverables that they have to confirm. Those are the things that need to be in place. So pretty much like a standard contract. And in return, we get that amount of tokens when the token launches. So the token has not launched yet, but you, in the beginning, mention how much of the token supply you get as a VC, and then you basically put together a contract, and that's all illustrated in the SAFT. So that's how it would be done, or how it should be done, right? Like many times this doesn't happen, especially if you work with, like, for example, the marketing channels that I mentioned, KOLs and influencers, you don't get a lot of contracts. When you show a KOL or an influencer a contract, they will have no idea what you mean most of the time, because they will just say, send me the money, send me the ETH address, I'll send you the money, and then I'll work for you. But what ends up happening many times is that people get scammed because there is no actual contract in place, right? So, and even then it becomes difficult, even if you have a contract in place. Let's say an influencer is in, let's say, the US, but you're based in Malaysia. How can you actually now really enforce that he gives you the money back? So also that cross-border and decentralized aspect of it can be very difficult if there's some issues that you have to solve. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yes, please. So what the exit strategy is for a pre-project to succeed? Yeah. So I think, so that's a very good question. So as you said, a lot of our pre-projects, they grow extremely fast and then they crash down exactly the same way. And we've seen that like every bull run, and it just happens, right? And it's going to continue to happen. It's not something that stops anytime soon. I think the biggest mistake a lot of projects make is the tokenomics. Because the tokenomics essentially is the whole aspect of, does your business model make sense? Do your tokens make sense? If you have a project that gives out way too many tokens in the beginning to investors, to stakeholders, the sell pressure is extremely high because everyone is gonna dump the tokens and sell the tokens as soon as they can, as soon as the price hits a certain goal. So I think making sure that tokenomics are sustainable and healthy, that's one of the key aspects for actually sustainable growth over like a Web3 project. But not many projects think about that, because a lot of projects want to satisfy the investors and want to satisfy the community. So they give out a lot of tokens, which is good for marketing, but it's bad because a lot of people sell. So I think tokenomics, healthy tokenomics, and the economics of that is super essential for success in Web3 as a project. And also from a VC perspective. We would always ask companies, what's your tokenomic strategy like? And many of them don't really have a strategy. Many of them would ask us if we can then create their strategy. And we can do that because a lot of VCs have advisory, they have a tokenomics team. But I think tokenomics is a super important topic that not many companies are actually thinking about if they have a token. Does that answer your question? If it's not taking off? I mean, that's a very good question. Either you just try your best and keep it going, right? You try to be as lean as possible, so you don't have that much expenses. But yeah, I mean, a lot of projects who made some money up front, for let's say an NFT is a great way to raise money in the beginning, right? Without even VCs. So what a lot of projects are doing are just saying, okay, we stop completely. We keep like the lowest amount of products possible and still available to users. But in the end, we just turn on the company. That's also an exit strategy, so to speak, if you don't want to build it long term. But if you want to build a project long term, you have to be ready for the bear market as well. So you have to have enough savings. If you don't, better make sure to just stop the company before, because otherwise you're draining that along for a very long time. It can be very tricky. So make sure to have enough savings, stay as lean as possible, and have an exit strategy if you're doing this long term or if you're just doing this for the bull run. Okay. Any other question?
Questions, anyone? No questions.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
So a very great thanks to Luca insightful sharing. So next we will be taking a short break. So there are snacks and drink provided there. Please help yourself. I will see you back in 5 minutes. Thank you. That's the slide. Okay, no problem. Hey, thank you for coming back. Next up, the second topic is Bitcoin Ordinals. So for some basic information, Bitcoin Ordinals is actually NFT living on the Bitcoin network. You can kind of like suppose like it works the same as on Ethereum, but there are some differences. So next up we have Sam, which is an analytic engineer that specialized in insight related to Bitcoin ordinals. So he will provide more details regarding this aspect. So let's give him a warm welcome on the stage.
Thank you. Hello, hello, Tess. Is that okay? Okay. Thanks, DC. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam. I'm an analytics engineer at Flipside Crypto. We ingest and curate blockchain data. I actually work mainly on EVM, but recently dabbled into Bitcoin data. So today I'm here to talk about Bitcoin Ordinals. Now, in today, I think it's safe to assume that we all agree Bitcoin is the dominant chain, right? Premier store of value. But things weren't so simple a few years ago, right? In 2020, 2021, we had the DeFi summer, we had the NFT boom, and all things that launched revolved around narratives, right? New chains that had different utilities, different narratives. And if you think from the perspective of DeFi and NFTs are the future, then obviously Bitcoin had a problem because Bitcoin only had one function, which is to transfer Bitcoin from address to address. And so the Bitcoin community is aware of this problem, but it wasn't until 2 years later when a guy called Casey Rodamore came in and solved this problem. Now, you may ask, like, how exactly does NFTs exist on Bitcoin? Isn't Bitcoin, I thought Bitcoin only transfer I thought you can only transfer Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network. Well, turns out you can. And the way this guy, Casey, proposed it is through a handbook or like a guide called the Ordinals Handbook. And in this guide, he proposes a way to enable NFTs on Bitcoin. Wondering if I should change slide. How do I change slide? Oh, okay. Okay, so in order for Bitcoin to have NFTs on the network, it needs to first overcome two problems. The first problem is called, or I call it, the non-fungible problem. And the second problem being creating new tokens. Okay, so let's talk about the first problem first, the non-fungible problem. The term non-fungible just means unique. So the opposite of non-fungible means not unique. And something that's not unique, you can think of it as, let's say, if I have a 10-cent coin and you have a 10-cent coin, you wouldn't mind exchanging that 10-cent coin because the value of the 10-cent coin is the same, right? So there is no difference in the coin, and so you're willing to make the exchange. Similarly, if I have one Bitcoin and you have one Bitcoin, you wouldn't mind exchanging my Bitcoin. You wouldn't mind taking my Bitcoin for your Bitcoin because, again, the value is the same. Right, so that's what we call fungible tokens. Here, the issue is that because Bitcoin is fungible, there was no way to enable the non-fungible property, which means there was no way to have unique things on Bitcoin. Okay, an example of what a non-fungible token could be is, let's say I have a house and you have a house. Even though they are both houses, you may not want to exchange your house with mine, or maybe you do, right? I don't know. But the point here being the houses are in the same category, but they are unique, and they do not have the same intrinsic value. Okay, and so the problem with Bitcoin. Sorry, I forgot how to change again. Do I click? Maybe. Only you click on that. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, got it. Okay, so to solve this problem of non-fungible, Casey borrows a term from math called ordinals, I guess, ordinal theory. Basically just means a sequence of numbers. Okay, it's something like I can count the number of chairs here, and I can assign them. I can assign each chair a number, so I can start from 1 all the way to 10. And so that's ordinals. And if we apply this to Bitcoin, today when a new Bitcoin block is created, 3.125 Bitcoin is mined. Like new Bitcoin is being created, and we can assign a number to that Bitcoin, like 1, 2, 3, right? And if we apply this all the way back to the Genesis block, right, block number 0, when Bitcoin is first created, we can apply the same rules. So, fun fact, for the first Bitcoin being mined, the first block being mined, there are 50 Bitcoin in a single block as a reward. So we can give each 50 Bitcoin a number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 50. Now, if we extend this principle further, instead of giving the number to 1 Bitcoin, we're giving it to the lowest denomination of Bitcoin. So 1 Bitcoin is actually equal to 100 million Satoshis, or sets for short. And similarly, 1 set is a lot of zeros and then 1 Bitcoin. So the lowest denomination of Bitcoin, you can think of it as like, let's say the length there is km, meter, cm, millimeter, right? Let's assume that millimeter is the lowest measurement you can go. Set is the lowest measurement of Bitcoin. Okay, so it's the lowest denomination of Bitcoin. So again, back to my example of the first block having 50 Bitcoin, it also means we have 5 billion Satoshis in the first block. And we can give a number to each of these Satoshis from 1 all the way to 5 billion. And in the second block being mined, the number continues 5 billion and 1 to 10 billion. And then 10 billion and 1 to 15 billion, and so on and so forth. If we continue this for all blocks up until today, the number is in the hundreds of trillions. But the important thing here is now we have introduced a way to identify uniqueness on Bitcoin, because we have given a number to each Satoshi, each set. And due to the nature of blockchain, we can track whenever Satoshis are being transferred or moved. And so I know exactly what is the Satoshi number of my Bitcoin in my wallet, thanks to this ordinal theory. So that's how we solve the first problem of not having something unique on Bitcoin, by assigning a number to every Satoshi. And the second problem being able to create new tokens on Bitcoin. So if you think about NFTs on Ethereum, for example, you are able to create a new NFT, a new token, right? Meme coin, whatever, those are all tokens. On Bitcoin, the network can only issue Bitcoin, the native token. So how do you exactly create new tokens to represent NFTs on Bitcoin? Well, in this handbook, the handbook doesn't look like that, but it's just like a wiki page. Casey proposed, instead of creating a new token, you would just announce a message saying, I'm creating this new token. And you are specifying which Satoshi you are graffitying it on, or the term here is inscribing. So imagine one Satoshi as like that circle over there, or this one over here. And then I am stating in a transaction saying, I want to inscribe something called the book onto this Satoshi. And so that is a message in the transaction. It is being broadcasted in the Bitcoin network and publicly available for everyone to decode. So everyone that follows the standard is able to correctly decode what NFT is being inscribed on what Satoshi. Okay, and by combining these two ideas, on one hand, at first we didn't have a unique way to identify Bitcoin. Now we do. And the other way being, instead of creating new tokens, we just announce a message, a standardized message for anyone to follow to create these NFTs on Bitcoin. So yeah, it looks something like this. So let's say this is my wallet. I have 3 Satoshis. And Satoshi number, whatever that is, has an inscription or ordinal, which looks like this. And in the handbook itself, it specifies like the exact things you need to have in your message so that everyone is able to index your NFT correctly, right? For example, start your message with this particular string or opcodes, and then the next number would represent the type of NFT. For example, it could be an image, it could be a text, HTML. The next number represents which Satoshi you are inscribing it onto. So all these messages are in Bitcoin history, and you can actually look up what the messages are. And that's how all these indexes, marketplaces like Magic Eden, Ordinals Wallet, are able to show the inscriptions and show you what inscriptions you own. So the beauty about this is that because I own a Satoshi that, if you track its history, has an inscription of that book, I can now send the Satoshi to someone. Okay, so let's say I want to send this Satoshi to you. Once I've sent it to you, you now own the Satoshi along with its history, and its history contains the inscription of the book. And that's how ordinals work. Now, if we extend this further, that's how marketplaces work. I can list this for, let's say, 1 Bitcoin. And if you're willing to purchase for 1 Bitcoin, you can send me 1 Bitcoin, and I can send you that 1 Satoshi, which has that history of the inscription. And yeah, that's basically it. I think you guys now know more about ordinals than 90% of the people on crypto. All right, a few last things to show. I've talked about ordinals this whole time, but you've not actually seen what an ordinal looks like. So I'm going to show it to you. Okay, this is ordinals.com. It is the website created by Casey, the guy who created ordinals. And this page just shows the latest inscriptions being inscribed. And I don't know the exact number, but I think it's in the hundreds of millions of inscriptions being created. And as you can expect, with NFTs, it's all just random pictures like this. Next thing I want to show is how it looks like on the data side. I don't know, I think I clicked it. It should be this link over here, black one. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. This is Flipside Crypto, company I work for. Basically, you can look up any data on Bitcoin. But over here is some very basic decoding of what the inscription looks like in its raw format. So you can make up some words like serial number, title, and then it looks like this collection is called inflation for some reason. And then there's another title here called Sparks, right? The point here being the inscription can be anything. It could be an image. It could be a description of an image. My favorite one is a game. So someone wrote in HTML, put it on the blockchain, and then indexes like Magic Eden is able to render that game. So I'll show you what that looks like. This doesn't always work, but what you're looking at is Magic Eden, and that's the inscription. So if you look at over here, Satoshi set number, that is the exact number of the Satoshi that this inscription is being inscribed on. And then, yeah, let's see if we can play the game. So it says die. Then you've got like this main page, explore, use potion. I'm gonna click explore, see what we get. Right, looks like nothing happened. But yeah, that's ordinals for you. Right, there's so many different things people have been doing with ordinals. If you know about BRC20 or heard about BRC20, that's another application of ordinals. But yeah, I think that concludes my talk. Thank you so much for listening. Any questions? Go ahead. What makes ordinals valuable? So if you think about how ordinals are being made, it's just an announcement of, I want to inscribe something onto the blockchain, right? So it's actually there is no quote unquote standard. It's a very like community thing. Like everyone just agrees that we are all following this standard created by this guy called KC. And the whole industry is actually based just on that. So what makes it valuable is that there are so many people willing to follow this standard. And I think that's very hard to get rid of. Yes.
The data is supposed to
No, cannot. So it's not inscribed onto the Satoshi. If you're familiar with Bitcoin data, there's in the witness data. And so it is basically just a history. How it works is, let's say a transaction. I mean, there are nice UIs for you to do this, but you can put in all the metadata you want, and then platforms like Magic Eden help you to mint, quote unquote mint. And then in the transactions data, you can check the hex. You can check the hex basically, and then you will see and if you decode it right, you will see whatever that I've decoded earlier you've seen. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah, well, yes. Yes. The media doesn't change. So all this in its raw format, it's text. And those are on the Bitcoin network transactions. So maybe if you think about Ethereum and they post the image on a cloud somewhere, those can be changed, but this cannot. It is in the Bitcoin history. And so if Magic Eden is hacked and all this is removed, anyone can run the ordinal indexer and still generate the same image. Yeah, go ahead. Good question. They did not. Yeah, so the cool thing about all these ordinals is that there's no change to the Bitcoin network. It uses what Bitcoin already existingly have. And these are just like applications created on top of Bitcoin. So you will run this indexer. You can imagine the computation is huge because you are counting every time a set is transferred and you're counting the number, you're tracking the number. Yeah. 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 Yes, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. There is a size limitation to this, but I'm not sure. What is it? Yeah. Good question, though. Yeah. Set rarity. Okay, so um, given that there are set numbers, there's a group of people that likes nice numbers. And so if your set number is what do you call it if the number is like mirrored nicely? You know, like it starts like 100 1001. Those are placed in categories. And if I'm not mistaken, set rarity here comes from a certain block. So let's say your set number is like 10. Obviously, that's very rare because it's within the first block being mine. And then here common just means, whatever this number is. But a rare set could be, set number 10, 100, 101, right? And then there are different levels of rarity. Again, this is all not based on any hard things. It's just based on cult-like interest around set numbers. Yeah. I think so, yeah. I think we've seen some crazy amount of volume for ordinals. Because if you want to argue which is better digital property, like the gentleman mentioned over there, this can't be changed at all. Like it is in the history, and anyone can run the indexer and get the same results. So in terms of digital property, this is definitely a harder asset, at least in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah. This is done by Magic Eden. So this platform is called Magic Eden. They are a marketplace for ordinals, and in the actual text itself, it's literally just HTML. Yeah. Yeah, and then all this is from Magic Eden. So if you look at most ordinals, they are mostly text-based or description of an image. HTML is the rarer. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I dare to click onto others here. Oops. Yeah, you can see most of it are just images. Oops. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, I might have clicked on something. Okay, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Any utility, anything that you want to be a digital property, you can create it as an ordinal. And you know for a fact that it cannot be changed. So I'm not seeing any utility around like how NFTs are used as like ticketing systems, because that can be, not valid after a while. And that may be better on like EVMs. But any, historical thing you want to put on the blockchain, I think ordinals are a better use case, although they are expensive. This is not ordinal, this is Ethereum, right? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for providing such insightful perspective on Bitcoin Ordinals. So next up, we are moving on to our networking session. So before the networking session, let us come together and take a group photo.
Later, after. It's okay. That's